Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Mortgage Heroes Weekly Podcast. I'm Andy.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Will.
Well, guys, it didn't take long for there to be a really massive shakeup with housing and the new administration. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. But I also have some good news, maybe, for those of you who are hoping to see more local inventory here in our own backyard, like literally our backyard here by the office in the open space that was once bought by another organization to preserve it so it could not be developed. But
Oh, it was that one.
somehow, like, they came to terms where everyone's getting what they want. I've never heard of that. That's weird.
And more.
And more, yeah. And then we're going to talk about housing as an investment. Is your house an investment, yes or no? So we'll get to all that today. So you guys doing good today, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you're like repping Eastlake in here super good today.
I figure we're going to talk about the Otay Ranch development, so I'm going to represent with Eastlake High School.
Yeah, we got
that was one of the first right here.
That's right. So, yeah, I think the first graduating class was 1995 or something.
Was
like
it?
Yeah,
That seems like a long time ago, doesn't it?
It does.
30 years.
Shout
30
out.
years. We better start the show before we start really aging
Jeez,
out.
that's crazy.
All right, guys, we'll go right to the first one. This one is likely to cause some disruption. I'm not sure if it's only going to be in our comments or where else it'll be, but what the FHA's new loan eligibility policy means for immigrant home buyers from Housing Wire. Now, this one is going to get everyone up in arms on both sides of the topic, specifically because it has to do with HUD's little order to crack down on non-permanent residents receiving mortgages. So I guess the best way to ask you how you feel about this is, where do you think there's good in this? Where do you think there's potential harm in this?
Yeah. So, I mean, just looking at this black and white, my total perspective, I feel that, just in what they're doing in general, they're sticking to the plan that they said that they were going to do. They're going to cut, they're going to, go in there, shake things up. And it was something that they did mention. Now, I feel before they can make any big progress or changes, they really have to go in there and shake things up to see what's working, what's not working, what really just should definitely go, and then come back and kind of fix everything. If you see the way that they speak in interviews or, and just in comments that they say, they do leave little, hints saying that they're not abolishing a lot of these things, but rather looking at them and breaking them down so that they could be better for the people. And, I think that they're just taking the lines for what they're saying. And a lot of people are going to have a lot of backlash. I mean, a lot of people are saying, why this? Yeah, housing maybe is going to be a lot lower in certain markets, sales, but overall, I think it's just going through what they said.
What about you, Memo? What do you think?
I mean, there's just going to be perceived risk mitigation. It's just we got to minimize the risk. I'll be honest. I've been doing this for 19 years, and to see a non-permanent resident alien purchased, I don't think I've ever seen that in 19 years. Mm-hmm. So I understand it's going to be a setback for a lot of people. A lot of us, pick our niches in the lending industry, or, we go through to a demographic where we do certain things for them. In this case, I haven't seen a lot of that, but I already know there's a lot of also alternative lending that there is going to be there for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So depending on the right visa, there's going to be the ITIN number, that loan that you can go out there. It's a lot less favorable for non-resident aliens, right, to purchase that route. But because of it's going to require a higher interest rate, possibly a higher interest rate, and a higher down payment. So it's not as favorable for somebody. But again, it's going to be some setbacks, and it's going to be a lot of setbacks for a lot of loan officers out there this is what they're focusing on.
Well, yeah, so there's kind of like the industry side of it, but then there's like the other argument is like the humanity side of it, if you will.
Correct.
Whether you agree or disagree, there's people that are going to say, hey, wait a minute, there's people they got here somehow, some shape, they might be in line for their residency, they're trying to get their immigration status to be, move through. Yeah. But, and this is where, again, I'm not taking a position on this, but I know just methodically speaking, there's people that have like 2-year wait times to even have their case heard. So it's like, okay, well then you're just like forcing them into renting, but they can't buy a house. Maybe they have a job already. So it's kind of like an issue tucked inside other issues, like that Russian nesting doll. You open one, there's another one inside, there's another one inside, another one inside. There's just
That's
issues
a good analogy.
kind of stacked within each other. This article though predominantly is focused on the Hispanic market, which is not just for border states anymore. I think that the general stereotype is, this is all for the border places. So California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, things like that. But that's not the case. There's been so many people that got taken to other parts of the country, and they're not just from Latin American countries, Central America, or Mexico. You got people from all over the world that had come over. Yeah. So The thing I think that's confusing about this is that they're citing the NAREP position, which is the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, and the announcement of this policy came on the final day of their policy conference. So it was like so it kind of even though it's not just about Hispanics, it's predominantly going to affect them, but they're not the only ones in the conversation. And it starts May 25th. So now that's only like, I don't know, 2 months away, about just shy of 2 months away. So it's like really quick. And there's the now what?
Yeah.
So, I have, and I think I've shared this on the show before, but I have friends who, they had immigrated here like decades ago, and one from South Africa and another one from Kenya, and they went through the citizenship process. They're both homeowners. They both have jobs. They're married and they have families. Yeah. But it took years, and it took tens of thousands of dollars to do that. And so it's challenging for people who might be facing that to go, oh, well, I can't buy a house until all that gets rectified, and I'm going to be in this long line for that to happen.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
yeah.
I feel like, it's going to get reformed. I'm sure it's not going to get removed. It's just going to get reformed down the line. So I'm confident to see, how they handle it once, they have an idea of, what allocation of money needs to go here and if they even bring it back. But I'm very confident because, United States real estate's, one of the biggest industries, and it's, one of the biggest propellers of our economy. So, I feel that down the line, they'll make sure that, they can, make right and, make this in a way where it benefits, American first policy.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to, for me, it's just, the negative side of it. It's going to reduce a lot of home ownership here. So it's just not going to be a very comfortable position to be putting families that are coming in here and, like you said, working through getting the proper documentation until they're able to do that. In the meantime, they're just going to have to rent, causing less home ownership out there for the minorities.
Yeah, I was gonna say it does kind of like maneuver and posture that there's just to be a lot of renting and possible long-term renting, which then you could have a continued conversation. Say, well, there's some advocacy for investment properties and multi-unit places where this is going to be housing for people that still need shelter, because they have to live somewhere. If they're not going to leave, then they have to, or return home, I should say. It's a more delicate way of saying that. But if they're not going to return home, then they're going to have shelter somewhere. So then where's that become? Again, every situation that may have like a dark spot has kind of like a silver lining somewhere for somebody. It may just not be about the subject that we're talking about. So right now, for immigrant home buyers, it might be a little bit of a darker time. But for people who are looking to house people who are in this kind of classification right now, you're going to be able to provide housing to people who have employment, have a job, or have the means to pay you for rent.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. I know a lot of people, the minorities, especially us having one of the largest borders here in San Diego, they have the tendency of wanting to buy here, because then what happens when you have these type of visas while you're working to have your permanent resident alien card, they kind of limit you from crossing over, on a regular basis. So then you have that effect. So I think it's going to affect a lot of other people if they're going to even be able to even have the proper, documentation to enter the U.S.
Yeah.
So who knows? I don't understand what's going to happen. I mean, in a ways, it's kind of like you're a catch-22. Is it a real benefit? Is it not? We don't understand it until we see it, truly happen, and we wait another year or so to see what the effects is going to be. But it will have economic growth effect for sure.
Well, one of the things I know, I was reading in the article, they were saying that I don't know what agency it was saying, they don't track the data. I was like, they do track the data. The loan application on it says there's a box, U.S. citizen, yes or no.
CoreLogic, who?
Like, what are you talking about? No, not CoreLogic, bro. I'm talking about like
I'm
Fannie
just saying,
Mae.
CoreLogic, get on this.
Yeah, Fannie Mae. They're saying, it's unclear how many non-permanent residents have mortgages insured by FHA. The agency has said it doesn't collect or retain information on applicant citizenship status.
Oh, but we do.
What are you talking about? It's on the application. What are you talking about? They don't.
It's part of your NMLS.
This is one of those situations where I'm like,
the whole demographics.
The agency said that it doesn't collect or retain. Well, they can say that all day long. We know they have it. So that's just weird to me. I was like, I don't know, why do they do this kind of stuff, man? That's terrible. So, I don't know. Any final thoughts on this, guys?
Yeah, no. My final thoughts is, just changes here. It's just going to be changes. I don't think it's going to be a huge negative impact. Again, in the 19 years that I've been in this industry, I have not come across one loan that's been done as a non-permanent resident alien. We do a lot of foreign national, and so we do a couple of we have alternative lending for that. So we have what's called non-QM. It doesn't conform to the Fannie Freddie guidelines. So we'll go and seek, sometimes it takes 20-30% down because we have to kind of do a DSCR type of transaction to it to make sure that it fits. But with that, it's just, we don't even run credit because a lot of times they don't even have credit here in the U.S. They don't have a Social Security, so we can't run it. So there's other alternatives. There is the I-10. It's not as favorable, like I mentioned, because the down payment's much higher. And also, the interest rates are not as favorable. And then there's a CalFHA here for California.
Yeah.
That's not over. And so I think there's still some options there. It's just time to look and see who's offering what.
Yeah, and you might just have to maybe look a little more closely to try to find someone in your area that focuses or specializes on that thing, so that way you can get the help you want while this other rule is making its way through the system.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this is more towards people that don't have much of a down payment, so I think it's kind of going towards that, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Okay.
And they mentioned we survived without it for a long time, and we'll survive again without it.
Of course.
But it's not a setback. It is a setback, and, they don't want to minimize that, but, it's been done before.
Like the market always does, it comes up with a solution to work around the things that are put in place to prevent something. So
absolutely.
Part of me is just like, give it some time, and you're going to see something new pop up that's going to be for this exact market, and they're just going to call it something else.
Yeah, and if anything, just contact your local lender.
That's right. All right, guys. So the next one is called Deal for Otay Lakes Area Development Preserves More Open Space but Adds Housing.
Yeah.
The developer is happy.
I like
Environmentalists are happy. Wow, what an anomaly. I've never seen an article start that way.
It was funny because, settlement, usually it's kind of, everybody settles. You don't get what you want, but it turns out, everybody got what they want, and they added more houses that are going to be built with the rule that, it's going to be more,
But that was a good article, how to start on a positive note.
Yeah.
The developer's happy. Environmentalists are happy. It's like, okay, what about the community? Are we going to be happy seeing all these homes? You know what I mean? That's going to be a different take.
Yeah, see that. So that's the thing. That's the funny thing about this is that the posture right up front is like, everyone's happy. They got something in the deal they want. And I'm sure both sides have to maybe give up something a little bit or include something they didn't want to. So on the development side, you want us to do more of this or more of that? Okay, if that's what it takes to get the deal done, sure, we'll add that in, or add that to the list to build or make. And then on the environmental side, it's like, we have to give up this much space, or we'll have to only move this line over there. So I know both sides had to give up something, but at least they're both satisfied with the result. Yeah. And I think that is a long time coming, because this thing's been happening, or this conversation's been open for many years.
Well, let's put it in perspective. When I first, I lived in Chula Vista, off of 3rd Avenue and Palomar. It was older Chula Vista. And when they opened all this up, when I would go to Southwestern College, it was only a 2-lane road. And so when you go to the right, you see all these cows there just,
rolling hills.
It was rolling hills, just chomping down the mountain. I mean, you see a ton of them. I know you weren't even born at that time, Brian, but you see a ton of cows out there and everything. You're like, when are they going to develop this?
Yeah.
So you would have no idea that this would be here. Right?
Well, how long ago was that?
That was long ago.
This is a long time ago, man.
90. It was like 90. Yeah, because I graduated in 90. So 91, I would, I'd go to Southwestern College. I'd take a look at that. And then it wasn't until a few years later when they started, building the newer homes. And I'm like telling Tanya, like, I want to live over here. I think it's going to be pretty cool. And sure enough, we bought one of our first homes in the Otay Ranch community. It was one of the first ones. And you would have never thought that, hey, this is actually pretty cool. But we're always looking forward to newer communities. Yeah. Where newer communities come, there's newer families that come, there's new relationships that you build, et cetera, et cetera. I actually even think like Eastlake here in this whole area, I talk about it when people tell me like, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Eastlake, Chula Vista. They're like right by the border. You know what I mean? People are like, whoa. And I say, what's cool about it is they built such a great infrastructure around us that I feel like the Truman Show. You probably don't know this movie because it's when Jim Carrey was there. He was raised in a bubble. And so he didn't know there was other things. It was just a bubble, and he was so happy. It wasn't to an older age where he was just like, hey, I want to go somewhere. I want to go to Fiji.
I got to add that to my list.
He lived in a fake world, right? Or was in a created world. And we kind of have this like insulated neighborhood where you don't have to really leave Eastlake unless you're like just like trying to get out of Eastlake.
Exactly.
Everything you need is right in here.
It's right here. So it's so convenient. And I'm sorry I'm taking over here right now, but I just get excited because I think that's going to feel like that other person that's coming in that's not used to that, that's going to come into that, is going to love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for everybody, I mean, I lived here my whole life. It's grown so much, but I feel like a few years ago, there was an article that came back that they called East Lake a trap because you have entertainment, you have schooling, you have housing, you have everything within a 5-mile radius. And don't even let me mention how many schools are just around. One of the biggest concerns that I have been, like just reading from this is that how are the community going to feel when there's even more people just, coming in? And there's only one way to get out to the Otay Lakes. And in the exact location where they're going to be, doing this development is literally right in front of the Otay Lakes, where it was just a few weeks ago burning down.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to see how that 2-lane road that goes out after you pass the Otay Ranch and all the East Lake, how are they going to go ahead and get people to go through there in masses, up and down? That's going to be really interesting.
It's in the same way they did it when it was Telegraph Canyon Road, and it was one lane in each direction. Now it's 2 lanes in each direction. It's eventually going to be 4 lanes in each direction over there, and then it'll be more lanes over here on the east side. But, this is one of those situations where you're going to have people that are excited about it, people that are angry about it, and people that are probably going to be like, oh, I'm out of here because of it. They're like, I don't want, they're talking about 2,750 additional housing units. Now there probably going to be some townhomes, condos, or mixed use kind of stuff. Not mixed use, multi-unit kind of stuff out there, because they can't just put, I don't think that's enough room for 2,700 and 50 SFRs. But they were able to get the amount of preserved acres up to 1,400. So the preservation is increased from 1,100 acres to 1,400 acres, which is great. But I think what I'm getting at is that the density is really what's going to cause, I think, the frustration for people. Already in the Facebook group this was announced in the East Lake residents group.
I can only imagine.
People, there's like these pictures already, and like you see like the angry emoji, just like with the furrowed brow and the red face, like. So in the first 24 hours, I think I saw like 155 comments, and I was like, okay, we have to talk about this because obviously we're going to have our own opinion about it. But the neighborhood's already talking about this, you guys, good and bad.
Yeah.
One of the good things I saw was like, hey, if you came to this place in the last 5 or 10 years, remember that there are people who felt this way about you coming here too. And now you're the one throwing, don't throw stones at glass houses. And it's like, hey, now you're saying you don't want other people to come. And okay, we get that, but also like remember where you came from as well. Well,
here's the thing, right? We need homes. We're short 5 to 6 million. And that's not even accounting the dilapidated homes that we have nationally. So if we're building here, we get all these disgruntled homeowners when we're building ADUs. Right? Now we're building over here. It's like, where are we going to house the people that need housing? So it's very difficult to really understand that. Like it is a catch-22. I get it. And I wish more people, I had all the park to myself like I used to have it. And now I have like 80 people there. But it's like, we're not going to always have it our way. It's a fact that our population continues to grow. Every 50 years, it's going to double. So where are we going to put these people? We have to start identifying, like, where do we find homes for them?
I'm glad you brought that up because on one of our previous videos that we had talked about, this is from a while back, but someone had made a comment just a couple days ago. It was like, you guys are just about greed and profit and you don't care about anything else. But the person commenting made no reference to a solution of where to house all the people who are going unhoused.
Yeah.
So it's like you can say that because it's easy to type and you have your thumb exercises, so you can type in the comments with anger. But then if you don't have a solution for to house people, like don't make a one-sided argument at me. And so I know it's the comments box. I'm not trying to like get my hair on a fire, but I'm saying it's like people will make those comments when we're having these conversations like this, but also offer no solution. So it's really just a complaint. Like, oh, you care about greed. Well, no. Do you make money doing loans? Yeah. Do they make money making development? Yeah. Are they preserving land? Yeah. But you're not even offering a solution on how to take care of people that are living 3 families to a home, 2 families to a home. That's not going to go on forever. Yeah. That's not going to work forever either. And so there has to be a solution. The only solution is more shelter.
Yeah.
So how do you make more shelter without profit? I don't know. Maybe that's what you do, and maybe that's why you wrote it in our comment box. I have no idea, lady. But that's something that you're going to have to address, or at least be honest about when you're making comments like that.
Yeah. I mean,
some people just like to stir up the pot. Probably got too much time on their hands.
For me, here's the thing. We welcome in, I didn't think I was going to have so many grandchildren. I got 4. Now another one in the way. The families do grow. They're going to need this space where to go. And so, like, where are we going to put them at? You know,
ADU
your
in the
kids, when
background.
your kids go, and I mean, I'm hoping that you're alive to see, and they have their kids.
Hey,
Where are we going to put them?
Stuff them at the ADU at Brian's place.
Hey, I'm just hoping by that time all this gets figured out, and they just
And here's the other thing. Having more properties is going to allow for prices to start settling down. You know, that's what we'll have. Right now, the reason why we continue to see home prices going up is because the lack of inventory. You know, so we need more inventory to stabilize prices. And that's what a lot of times we also don't understand.
Yeah, and I think as soon as they start actually, breaking ground and going out there, a lot of people are going to start seeing that prices might start taking a little bit of a dip because they know that inventory is coming. So it's like, they're going to be a little upset right now, but once houses are a tiny bit more affordable, it's going to be a lot more easy for people to be able to purchase those houses, get into a good community, and be able to have, a good life.
And I think the hope is that if they are so if I'm just going to try to put some pieces of the puzzle together here, if they're going to do, let's say, more dense housing, it's going to be some sort of thing, something like condos, some apartments, and some townhomes, which then maybe that entry level cost is a little bit more affordable and approachable for that married couple. Maybe they have a kid, maybe they have two. But if they're married and they're both working, I think this is where you're going to see an opportunity for people to get into homeownership in this neighborhood where broadly, unless you're kind of, let's say, more established as upper middle class, it's hard to get in a $900,000 starter home or even a $700,000 starter home. So I'm hoping that when we get inventory, that it is approachable for those first-time home buyers in the traditional sense, like we used to talk about.
Well, the article, it does mention that, Andy. It says one of the things we like about this project is that it's likely to provide more of the kinds of housing that are affordable to the greater number of people at Hogan.
And I should have phrased it.
I just didn't like the likely. We could have done without that, but most likely the cool thing about these planned unit developments in the area, they have to bring a certain amount of affordable housing in place. So that's a good thing.
Yeah,
already.
I think I should have said I'm hopeful that that's what occurs. It's always planned, and it's always like this is what we hope to happen. Like, but I hope it happens because it's really one of the missing things that's happening just in the economy at large is you have to go. Generally speaking, most younger people have to go somewhere else to get their first time home at $250,000 or even $300,000. Median home price around $400,000 still is out of reach for a lot of people when they're right out of college, having their first job, or they're in their mid-20s and they have two jobs and no kids. Like it's still a little bit out of reach. So
absolutely, especially here in San Diego, when you're talking about the median sales price of a home is $960. Where most people going to even purchase a home, it's not going to get any easier.
Yeah. So I just think so. I guess in my where I'm at right now, kind of in the first 48 hours of this article is like, okay, well, I guess I'm excited that we have some development happening. That's great. We've been talking about inventory forever. So how could I be not excited about that? I'd be like going back on everything we've been barking about for 2 years. And then we have, there's going to be problems. Like there's going to be, yes, we have great infrastructure here, but there's going to be a lot more congestion. That's going to be an issue with some people. But I am still on the other side hopeful that this opens up housing as an opportunity for young folks.
It's
That's
just crazy. I'm grinning because it's just like, I knew we're going to build right close to Donovan, and there it is.
Yeah, Donovan
This is going to be right there, So we're going to pay a premium lot for having the view of.
Yeah, but you'll get to see the pretty lights at night. Maybe the lights are going to light you up and have a nice.
It's just pretty crazy.
You have a nice,
your
nice
HOA
hue
is
on the
actually
horizon.
going to pay for the lights there.
Probably.
So,
but we knew that was coming.
But with Brian, we talked about millennials and millennial home buyers, like in Brian's age category, where like they're like the fastest segment or fastest growing segment of homeowners. I think that's kind of where I think this is a good hand in glove kind of situation. So
one of the things that I'm curious to see, and I mean, it's going to be a huge, I think, just disaster is insurance. Let's see how insurance goes.
Well, I'll put it this way. It's going to be great for the person that does it.
Yeah, I know.
Because they're going to write all the policies. So it's kind of like if you're left to be able to take the business that's there, then you're going to get it. Yeah. So now maybe
California Fair Plan.
Maybe that's a naive comment. Maybe there's just too much risk. I don't know.
There it was just burnt.
Well, let's round this up today, guys, talking about homeownership as an investment, kind of coming off of the tail end of new development here in our own neighborhood coming in the next 5 to 8 years, probably.
Three. It's at about 3 years before they even hit a shovel.
To break ground, right. Yeah. So then we'll see units in maybe 5 to 8, I think. I don't know. Homeownership as an investment. Maryland governor says high prices mean fewer young adults can benefit from CNBC. Now, this one is a little bit I'll say short on the story, only because there's a lot that's happened between the reference point of 1980 and 2025.
Yeah.
It's 45 years of information on a page and a half. That's not, it represents 45 years of time passing. But the whole idea here is that, housing is something that, generally speaking, historically has been something you've been able to bank on that creates value over time. You pay down the debt, you own it, it's in your family, you put it to the next generation, and they have the financial windfall of inheriting it. So, these are all things that I find myself on the side of supporting, of course. I do somewhat worry, but not like up at night worry. I'm just watching with one eye, like, I don't know how this is going to work out for everyone following in our footsteps. I just don't know, because it feels like the train left the station on most people. And unless they can get on some sort of financial trend to catch up to it, you got housing pricing racing way far ahead of income increase, and I don't necessarily see a solution on that right in front of us.
Well, yeah, it says it clearly here. Since 1980, median home sales prices have increased much faster than median household incomes, according to the Urban Institution. Then it says for some, that's putting home ownership out of reach.
Yep.
And like I mentioned earlier, Brian, like for your kids, right? Like, where are they going to find a home? In this case, do you feel that it's going to be easier for them to find financing for a home than what it is now?
No.
It's just, those are the things that we're facing right now. Those are the things that we have to figure out how to stabilize so that we can give them that dream of home ownership as well, without feeling like they have to break piggy banks and, go down the bank and just deplete everything they have there, their retirement, their life savings. Like, this is what looks like what's going to happen, what's going to need to happen to these generations to come.
Yeah.
And it's kind of scary, to be honest.
Well, so here's one thing I think we've talked about, and you've talked about this more of like your personal story, but kind of tucked in other things we covered, which is you're looking ahead and going, okay, well, if I think that obtaining housing is going to be more difficult for my sons and my grandchildren, then what can I do about it now? And even if you're younger, but then you don't have grandkids yet, thinking about, okay, well, what do I do today? Yeah. And maybe it's that first couple of years where it's a little challenging, but then it starts getting easier over time, and over time it's more easy, and you get older, but you have it. It's kind of more of the have it versus not have it. Absolutely. Versus, well, I'm only going to have it if it's easy. Well, that might not actually work out at all then. So I think that this is also kind of a smoke signal, if you will, to the future of generations. Be like, hey, homeownership still can be a financial gain for your family long term, but you have to do something about it. And the advocacy here is him telling his own story. It's like, this isn't just a shelter. It was financial security for the generation that was coming up behind my parents, who bought their house and got the quote unquote American dream. But then that does pass down, And fortunately, my sister and I are in that beneficiary as well position. When my folks pass on, they have a house. They've always had a house, and so my kids will be the same situation. So there's that kind of legacy passing on the baton that I think can help financially, especially if there's uncertain economic times ahead. Yeah,
I do like what he actually states right here is that's what housing helps provide. Moore said, it's not just shelter, it's a security, it's an investment, it's a chance you can tap into something if an emergency happens.
And that's, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, it's okay. No, you're good. But I mean, he just adds more flavor to that, which it's so true when you put that in perspective. Like, we use it as a shelter, but there's moments where, like, I got to send my kids to college. I gotta, I had an emergency where my roof is done, or my debt got out of hand because I didn't know how to control it. I didn't know how to budget. So you can go to this instrument, your home, tap into that equity, and give yourself that lifeline that, you may well deserve, and get out of these situations if needed, or even, again, use it for college, where now I give my child that opportunity to do something that they wanted to do. Whether they use that, degree or not, I don't know, but you're giving them a chance at a different life, if that makes sense.
One of the things that comes to mind from what William was sharing in the article is, to me, this kind of instills, like, you can leave your family or your kids a fortune, but that only goes so far if they don't have the right legacy. And what I mean by legacy is that legacy is tied more to the mindset, the values, and the principles that you instill in your kids. And the fortune is just a monetary transfer of funds, and if they don't have the right adequate mindset, then those funds are really virtually, finished as soon as they make the wrong decisions or indecisions that they don't make.
Yeah. One of the things I think, and I found myself thinking about this when I was preparing my comments and my notes for this part of the show today was, the data today is most often used as a predictor of tomorrow. There might be a little bit of an exception here because there's so many baby boomers that have homes that are at this low kind of lock-in effect interest rate where they have lots of equity because prices have gone up so much in the last 5 years. They're probably paying their mortgage payments at very low rates right now too. But because they are advanced in age, that's going to start turning over. And so I think you're going to start seeing a lot of inherited real estate in the next 10 to 15 years, maybe even as soon as 5. Yeah. I shouldn't quote the number, but there's some exorbitant amount of people turning 80 every day. And I can't remember.
Like 10,000.
Is that the number?
Something
okay,
like that,
I couldn't remember it.
Baby boomers turning.
Yeah, I heard Miguel say it, and I was like, wait, what? Like it was some crazy number like that, 1,000 per day.
Yeah,
and I was like, that's nuts. Like turning 80, Brian. 10,000 per day. Can you imagine that? Turning 80 today, and then 10,000 tomorrow, then 10,000 the next day, and 10,000. So
I just imagined it. That was crazy.
It's 100,000 people in 10 days, right?
It's ridiculous.
Turning 80. But okay, so with that though, these people they're gonna pass away, and so so the reason I'm saying all this, guys, is because the 35 to 48-year-olds who we're kind of looking at now, they're like acquiring homeownerships like on one hand quicker because they're like we know we have to get in. But but there's still less of them cumulatively that are doing that.
Yeah.
But they're also in some instances, or maybe even most, they're going to be inheriting something, and so they will be homeowners. It's just going to be a matter of those keys being handed to them versus them having to buy their way into it. And I think that's going to skew some of the results.
Absolutely,
it obviously skew the results. That's a stupid comment. I mean, it's going to skew the results, what I mean is like what we see now is not really a good indicator of what we're probably going to see happen in the next 5, 10, 15 years. That's a huge transfer
of wealth right there, Pat. You passed on.
Absolutely, yeah.
One of the biggest we'll ever see. So it's time to take advantage of those. Here's another thing that I never understood, but the median net worth of a homeowner is $396,200. The median net worth of a renter is $10,400.
It's huge.
That's to tell you the power of owning a home. You have this other instrument, so important. So I really like that he put this article together because it really gives you a different perspective, a good understanding that it's true. And I think he went back to the 1980s because that's when he mentioned that my family migrated here. It kind of goes along with everything that we have, right? The non-permanent resident aliens and all that. It kind of goes hand in hand with all this. So I like the way you put these articles. It just gives you that accomplishment feel, like, hey, I got my home. He was able to go to college because the parents decided to tap into the equity. So this is not something that's just happened, last 10, 15 years. This is something that's been happening for a very long time. And people are able to tap into this property that's worth more. And that's just to tell you, properties will continue to increase. Even though I think it's tapped out, $960,000 in San Diego. I think we're tapped out. I think there's still more to come, especially if they're building, and then our military towns keep growing. If you go by Silver Strand and all that, we continue to see that they're building more and more and more. Mm-hmm. And why are they building more?
The demand.
That's it. There's more people coming in.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me, like just hearing those statistics. And I've heard similar statistics before. It's just like, I wonder why people don't act or have the intent or the sentiment to be able to want to pursue, home ownership more if they know that, there's, more upside than there is downside. I understand that, there's the affordability gap and it's, very tough right now. But, there's, even if it takes 1 year or 5 years, I feel that the sentiment's like, I don't want to go through all that. I don't want to rent. And it's just, it's surprising because we were listening to this and like we heard the story, they were able to sacrifice their American dream so that, he could have the American dream. So it's just kind of like, a lot of people look at it still like, I don't know if I want to go through all that sacrifice, but we're giving you guys those stories that don't get that recognition that, they deserve.
Yeah. I also think it's because of lack of education. For me, growing up with a single parent home, my mom did buy a couple of properties, but I think she didn't keep those because she said she thought like, I can't keep it. I'm in a position where I need that money, so I don't know how to refinance. I'm just gonna sell it and I'm just gonna go pay down this thing and I'll buy another one later, right? Because it was much easier to say that back then. This is a trend, I'm going to say after 2020, I think it's not so easy to say, oh, I'm going to sell this one. I'm just going to go buy another one right now, you know, in a couple of years. It's like, oh, dang, prices went up so high. They went, what, 44% in some areas?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's not so easy to say that now. It's like, now what did I do? If hindsight was 2020, I wouldn't have got rid of it.
Yeah.
You know, because it's not that easy now to step it back into it.
Right.
You know, that home that you sold for $560, it's like, now I'm going to pay $800 for that?
Yeah.
It just also mentally,
right.
You're
just, like it's the same place.
Exactly.
same, different price.
It's very difficult, right? And that's what happens right now. Those are these times are changing. That's why we need more affordability. We need to build more homes. But you know, developers are being strategic. Why in the hell am I going to go build and then I'm going to go back to a mortgage meltdown like it happened back in 2008-9? We had a ton of inventory and look how homes just dropped. They dropped like 50-60% in some areas. It was crazy.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So I think is that, to answer that question, Brian, I think is just a lack of, you know, not understanding taxes, not having the proper education, what the true benefits are. And just some people, they can't live. They're already living paycheck to paycheck. So to put something on top of that with these higher interest rate is just going to put them in a, you know, in a predicament where I just can't do that right now. That sacrifice is not a sacrifice for me right now. Yeah. Sacrifice is for me to be able to rent and just still maintain my home.
I have potentially a nice way to put a bow on this one for you guys. I'm going to dust off the term soft landing. How about that? You ready? You ready for this? Here comes Andy's soft landing prediction. Let's say that all these people who are equity rich and they're boomers and they pass away and they're going to leave legacy and their children are going to inherit the house, inherit the home. They'll have a soft landing into home ownership, where they don't have to go through the same qualification. The affordability is going to be different. The loan balance that's on it is going to be a lot less. They could sell the house and have a windfall event financially. So I think there's going to be a soft landing for a lot of the people that are going to inherit real estate when people pass away, because there's so much equity right now.
The biggest transfer of wealth.
You like turbulence that? For all.
You like
soft
that?
Landing for some.
Hey, Jerome Powell, I'm stealing your word soft landing since you're not using it anymore. I'm going to take it back. I'm going to use it in this context, talking about generational wealth transfer. So, sounds good, guys? You
right
like
next
that?
To this transitory, No,
I didn't say transitory. Yeah, no, it's going to transition to these people, but it's definitely not. No, I'm going to go soft landing. Soft landing for all you people coming up into home ownership when your parents unfortunately pass away. So.
Turbulence to everybody.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I wanted to go on this other on the ratio divided in home ownership rates. I just didn't. That was pretty crazy for me, Andy.
So I have a mixed opinion about this, and I've had this conversation with people in every single race category that was mentioned there, and there's two things that I've found to be true. Number one, there's disproportionate representation across our population, first of all, and number two, every single race group mentioned in here has their own challenges culturally with financial education. And that is predominantly the top two, whether the number one or number two is not a non-issue, but those are the two things that get mentioned to me when I talk to my friends about this. So you're talking about Asians, you're talking about Asians, African Americans, and you're talking about Hispanic groups here and their ratio of home ownership. Yeah. And to all our friends in real estate that represent each of those, and even my friends in finance or investment planning and that kind of thing, it's like, first of all, I friends in each of those, both of those things, real estate, mortgage, and then financial planning. And it's like, it's a literacy issue. And I don't mean illiterate versus literate. It's like, we have to teach people these things regardless of their race. And then also there's things embedded into the race where they have these ideas of how it should look or how it should be. And sometimes those are stumbling blocks rather than pathways towards it. Yeah,
it's so true. I mean, you know, one of the biggest things with us Hispanics is, you know, like my mom would tell me, mijo, no compres eso. Si no tienes el cash, no lo compres.
Right.
You know, and so we interpret that everything has to be. And, you know, so then you got Dave Ramsey,
are you
right?
Sitting on $960,000 of cash?
You see, exactly. So then you have people like Dave Ramsey, like, don't get into debt if you can't afford it, You have all these mixed things, right? But honestly, there's nothing better than taking that leap of faith and just creating that action behind it. Hey, you want that? Just get in there, and then you figure it out if it's going to benefit, you know?
One of the saddest things I heard someone tell me, this was a couple of years ago, and they're like, hey, listen, when I was growing up, I was told stay out of the system altogether. Yeah. Which means don't get credit cards, don't borrow anything ever, so that way you're just clean, and there's nothing on you. Well, the problem with that is when you go to qualify for a house, you need to have credit.
Exactly.
So it's like, so that's why I mentioned it's like the cultural thing and the education thing, when those go hand in hand, it's like you have to like be aware that, okay, this is going to help me get along this way into this possession of having keys in my own place. Well, but that takes some work. The puzzle pieces have to come together so you can actually qualify. One of those things is credit.
Exactly.
But if you're being over here being told, don't ever get credit, not from a financial protection place, but from a, hey, just don't be on anyone's books, like that's not going to help you when it comes to getting
exactly.
a
And
loan,
that's what I was getting at with my mom. If you can't afford it, pay. If you can't afford it by paying cash, don't do it, right? But it's so important. They never taught us, go get credit and just pay your things on time. You know, when I got my first credit card, I just charged the heck out of that. And when the person was calling me because I didn't make the payment, I was like, Mr. Flores, are you going to make the payment? And I'm like, why? I don't have the money right now.
You
know?
guys gave me the credit.
You gave me the credit. What the heck?
Why you don't call me again?
Hey, I thought that's why I was using this card.
But, right?
That makes sense.
And that becomes the lack of education with these things. A lot of times they're like, well, you gave me the credit. It's your fault. You know, I didn't think paying these things, paying these things on time was going to be detrimental to the future as I want to purchase a vehicle, as I want to purchase a home. I didn't know all these things.
Yeah.
You know?
You make such a good point. And it goes to the education, because I feel like even if you get taught one way, maybe in their culture and the way that their customs are, that doesn't make sense. Although here's the information, but yeah, sometimes we don't retain the information that's given to us because A, we don't learn like that. B, those examples aren't, able to be made in our head. So it's like, you really have to kind of personalize the way that you're teaching finances to different cultures, because in some cultures that could be good, some culture that's bad, and all around this way that we teach doesn't work for everybody. So everybody has a customized way of being able to understand finance that's attached a lot to their culture and the way they're bringing up.
Yeah.
And I see this because it says, blacks, African American, and Hispanic, as Mexicans, like we're the lowest ones in the purchasing. But I really think that's because of, again, the lack of education that our parents had, because I'll tell you, I know hands down my grandfather, they were some of the hardest working people.
100%.
They worked hard.
Yeah.
But when it came to understanding things or reading or how to deposit a check and stuff, that's where it was lost. That's when then my mom came in. Well, you have to make your deposits like this and you can't pay beyond your means, But then they didn't teach us that other next step.
Yeah.
And so all that, like all my learning came from surrounding myself. When I bought my first home, who do you surround yourself with?
People that are homeowners.
That's it.
Yeah.
My neighbor, Art's right there. They're all there. So it's like, how do we do this? Well, how do we go get more?
Yeah.
And that's how it becomes. But then at times when the mortgage meltdown came down, I lost like 9 properties. You remember that. It was not fun. We bought right in front of Petco Park, and nobody helped me understand how I was able to maintain that. Although I did go to conferences and all these other wealthy people would tell me, just sell and pay the capital gains. No, I'm not going to pay Uncle Sam all this money. Guess what? I should have done it. And it's just hindsight, right? It's 2020. What do they know? I wasn't ready to listen. I wasn't ready to become that student yet. Now I'm in a whole different place.
Yeah.
I'm like trying to keep everything that I have here in San Diego. I'm not even investing in other states because here I know my own backyard. I know what it's going to be worth.
Yeah.
Here's where I can educate more people,
Yeah.
That's one of the things I appreciate about you, Will, is your enthusiasm and the way that you deliver the message, that it just takes one person to connect to that energy, and then their whole mind goes into like, oh, I need to figure this out. But it goes a lot to the room that you're in, the circle that you're surrounded, because other people are like, no, don't buy. Oh, I probably shouldn't buy. Like none of my friends are buying. Like, it's probably a dumb idea. I'm going to go and just talk about sports and stuff. But no, you're over here talking with conviction, and then you share your real life experiences, and I'm sure people are listening like, oh, if he can do it, and then the way that he's explaining the situation he's been, like, I can too. And that's honestly one of the biggest things that you want people to get from this podcast, that it's like, yo, like we're talking about real stuff that's happening to you in your life, and we just want to make sure you guys use these examples to be able to make better decisions or better informed decisions.
Yeah.
And like you said, if I can do it, come on now.
I don't mean to talk down like that. From that point of view.
But no, I get that, and it's so true. And I there's no offense in that. It's so true. And I say it, if I can do it.
Because it feels like
oh my goodness,
looking up to you.
I get that. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah.
For a fact.
Yeah.
For a fact.
Yep.
And it's a fun journey. I'm telling you, when I see the stats or what they say, the medium a homeowner is worth $390,200. Like, that is so true. I get that, and now we can pass on this legacy. Like earlier we said, the baby boomers, that's going to be one of the biggest generational wealth transfers we'll ever see.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's massive.
Whole portfolio is getting handed down.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
The portfolio wealth, plus you have the real estate
Stocks
wealth.
and whatever, bonds and...
Like the next
Christ.
like 5, 10, 15 years is going to be pretty intense.
Yeah.
Intense, insane, both intense and insane.
And here's
I
the
guess.
thing: us as parents now have to teach when they get that inheritance. How are they going to keep that and hopefully pass it on?
Yeah.
That's another thing.
So that's the word I wanted to use, not fortune, inheritance over legacy. Like, so legacy, mindset, inheritance is just here's the money.
That's
here's
it.
What you inherit.
Yeah. No, that's good. I'm glad you brought that up because there's, as you would, I hope, expect that when you divide things by race in the paper, it doesn't tell the whole story. And there's everyone's individual story. There's like kind of the collective story, and then there's the history as well. History, unfortunately, was not that fond to Hispanics and to Black Americans for a long time when it came to housing, and there was rules against that. Actually,
it still isn't,
right?
We got the non-permanent resident.
Well, no, but I know. But what I'm saying, my point is like actually being like proactively excluded from housing and coming from that and moving getting away from that in history and moving towards everyone can buy a house. That's obviously I'll say more of an equal playing field. But I think that then you have to start talking about the whole the financial education part where people actually have to embrace understanding what the system's asking of you in order to have the thing that you're being measured by. Or say, we're going to measure home ownership by a race. Okay, well, there's so many variables in that. It's not just a black and white issue. Not to be funny, it's just not a black or white thing in this case. It has a lot to do with so many other things, and not all of them are measurable. Yeah. So I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you.
This was measured, but on the first article, it wasn't. I just don't understand that.
But even in the first article with the with the immigration policy, again, they focused it more on the Hispanic population because the announcement came on the back of the NAREP policy meeting. But it's like it's not just a Hispanic issue. It really isn't. It's maybe predominantly one like on the surface, but below the surface, it's a way bigger than that.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
Thank you guys for a great show. What was the favorite part of the show for you today, Brian?
For me, it's going to be that Otay Ranch development. I remember back in 2018, we were talking about Millennia and the Gaylord
Gaylord Hotel project.
Right. And that was back in 2018, I remember. And now talking about this, I mean, it didn't happen until after 2020. So it's interesting to see how long it's going to take till they break ground, how long it's going to take till they actually start, making progress. And I'm interested to see, how everything comes out because Millennia was a very interesting community, how it was laid out like a mini downtown area, housing with shared living spaces. So I think it's going to be really cool to see, the community grow even more.
Yeah, even with that Gaylord Resort, check that out. How many jobs is that bringing?
I think they had 28,000 job fairs a couple weeks ago at Southwestern College.
So wait, 28,000 people?
28,000 jobs are open.
Wait, 2,800 or 28,000?
28,000. There wasn't 2,800. There was 28,000 job openings, and then they do job fairs at Southwestern College.
That's so crazy.
It's crazy.
It's awesome.
That's crazy.
Event space, retail, just operations. God,
how about you, Memo? What was the favorite part of the show?
Mine was
today?
let me find that one. The housing right now. Housing is an investment. It really is. I like that he brought it all the way to 1980. Because I always use the whole thing when my grandmother bought their house, was it worth less than what they bought it, or was it more than? More. And it was more. It's always been more. Even with the cycles and the dips, it just it puts everything in perspective. And I like that. The home, we all look at it like a shelter. So I like that analogy, how we utilize that. It's not just that, you can use it for different things. So I love that because me being a homer, I can totally relate to that. And me, when I'm trying to inspire other people to be homeowners, this is great. Now I know, here's this article. Come on, check this out. Find a flaw. Find anything in history that says you shouldn't be buying right now. Just tell me that. And if you can find something like that, we talked about the other person that put their remark right there. If you can find a solution or why you shouldn't, let me know. So I love this article. I want to put this in front of more people and help them understand that it's all about leveraging your situation. So put yourself in that position of home ownership and get it done. just pull the trigger. Let's go.
Awesome. That's great. I'm going to go with the development and the environmentalists coming together and working a deal. Like, that is crazy. Usually it's like an arm wrestling competition, and one's going to win, one's going to lose, someone's going to go home with their tail tucked between their leg, and someone's going to feel like they came out mighty and victorious. And in this case, at least right now, everyone is glad-handing and high-fiving that they are getting a deal where both sides are getting most of what they want or all of what they want. So I would love to see it all work out that way, and I do hope for the best when it comes to additional development. And I also have to say, I really enjoy driving out east past the lake, and it's very beautiful in the mountains and the hillsides there, and I really enjoy that drive. It's nice and quiet, it's peaceful, and it's very serene in most occasions. The weekend, you get a lot of traffic out there, the car clubs, bikers, and motorcyclists out there, but it'll be a sight to see in the years coming when we have so much more housing there. 2,750 units. That is music to my ears. Again, not because of the profit part, but because it's shelter we need. It's absolutely supply for the demand that we have on hand. So,
absolutely.
Thank you guys for a great show today. And thank you all for watching the Mortgage Heroes Weekly podcast. We're so grateful to have you here. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so that every time we drop a new video, you hear it first. If you are new to the channel, we also have a playlist called Friends of Mortgage Heroes, where Brian, Memo, and myself invite people that are our friends in and around real estate to talk about business and life and success and trials and all the things that come along with being in and around business and this particular industry. So check out, we've had some really amazing guests recently and some awesome ones we've already recorded that are coming up soon. So make sure you check that out. Thank you so much for watching the show. Remember to send to someone you know and love, to help them win in mortgage and real estate. You guys, thank you so much for a great show, and we'll see you all again next week. Bye.
See ya. If you like this video and like to subscribe, click here. And if you want to watch other videos, click here.